Hey, it's your boy Billy Boy Bacon, and yeah, this video is gonna be a little bit different. I'm just sort of wanting to ramble on a little bit for an episode, um, and so I figured might as well just put some RuneScape in the background or what have you know. And yeah, so it's like there's a variety of things to talk about, of course, but I was trying to think of some topics, and I guess I'll just sort of talk about what's been kind of on my mind recently. Uh, I guess to start off with, for one, I'm still sick, though I'm mostly better. I just get flare ups of the symptoms here and there, like a coughing fit sometimes. And yeah, like there's nothing too crazy going on in my world, so to speak. I guess I'm kind of busy with stuff to do with like important meetings and whatnot, but and appointments. But otherwise, it's not too bad. I will say, Battlefield 6, very worthwhile playing. It's I like it quite a bit. It reminds me a lot of Battlefield 3, which I played a lot of when I was younger. Um, so, yeah, for sure. What the heck? Let's drop that. Wait, I'm gonna drop the hammer? Oh, I must have hit examine by accident. Um, but yeah, like, so that's really quite fun. The gameplay is very, very tight. Um, the campaign definitely feels like something that was added after the fact to justify the existence of the gameplay, but you know, that's how things go sometimes. Um, but yeah, so I'm just playing some RuneScape, putting some sort of stuff in the background, something. What I'm trying to do is just get my skills better. I never really played this a lot. Um, I played it a very, very small bit because my brother used to play a lot. Um, and yeah, I mean, I definitely enjoy it. Uh, it's very open ended, pretty fun in that regard. Uh, I fully acknowledge that this uh, video is probably going to be pretty dog water, but I mean, standard YouTube stuff. If you do like it, go ahead and like, subscribe, give some comments, whatever. Because I'll definitely do more. I fully admit this is a very low episode, low effort episode, but that's just because I still not feeling amazing, and I've been busy with a fair bit of stuff. But you do be like that sometimes. Get over here. There we go. And turn on that. And the it's kind of interesting because when I'm trying to find the right words here. Forgive me. So I definitely struggle with like insomnia stuff, mostly related to like anxieties and things of that nature. And so I tend to spend a lot of my time thinking, even if I don't really want to be. And oh, awesome. And so, oh my gosh. Let me think. All right. What I was trying to think of is, there's lots of topics that I've definitely been spending a lot of time thinking about recently. And one of them is, like, what it means to be a good man. I definitely look to Uncle Iroh from Avatar: The Last Airbender as a major inspiration in that factor. Because he kind of was my father figure when I was growing up. I didn't really have all that good of a father figure or anyone to really rely on in that regard. Oh, let me turn that off. And something that's important to distinguish is there is a very large difference between what people associate as, like, being super masculine and, like, actual masculinity. An example of that would be there's sort of a crisis that most men in our recent history end up encountering, which is in their teen years and early adult life, they are put into a position where sell those quickly, and where their masculinity is very fragile because it hasn't been nurtured into being stable and recognizing what is the simple reality that all people have a little bit of these quote-unquote feminine qualities and masculine qualities. And what it means to have a stable masculinity or a secure masculinity is recognizing, the factors of both that you have and being very secure in who you are as a person. When a lot of young men hit this sort of crisis, they end up in a position where it kind of branches off into one of two ways pretty much all the time. One of those ways is the classic, like, femboy, super effeminate man who's encouraged to be homosexual. Maybe they do have the inclination to be homosexual, or sometimes they're encouraged to be trans, even if that's not necessarily accurate for who they are. And that's sort of one half of the sort of split that they end up down. And of course, that can be very dangerous to a man longevity wise, because it's demonstrating that they're extremely fragile in their masculinity. They don't feel like they are a man deep down, and so they actively reject it or push it away. And then the other half of that is the side that a lot of people think of when you think of figures like Andrew Tate, the toxic masculinity, where they are being quote-unquote masculine for the sake of being quote-unquote masculine without any appreciation of the nuance or tolerance for just the realities of who they are. Ends up creating a very toxic and aggressive space. And notably, they're usually the ones more fragile than even the even the ones that go the other half of that crisis. And it's always sort of sad to see fellow men kind of end up down that route, because it's like, for me, I find it just very difficult to understand how someone is that fragile in who they are. And the best way I've kind of come to start understanding it is realizing that it is based in the fact that they don't know how to be themselves, like truly themselves. And it's like, being quote unquote effeminate is usually in relation to traumas that they have not healed from and they don't know how to deal with. And recognizing it from that angle is usually the best way to connect with people in that place, I find. What the hell happened to RuneScape? Good lord. That was pretty funny. Okay. Weird. But it's just so disheartening to see people with malicious intent take advantage of people in that crisis. And I think the key to it is to try and find a secure masculinity within yourself. I mean, and that's not necessarily easy, of course. You know, if it was easy, everyone would just do it. But I've found that the main way to be secure in your masculinity is to recognize the factors that play at you when you're not necessarily proud of it. I mean, I guess an example. I have a lot of childhood traumas myself, personally. And so for me, it's very important, to have a partner who is willing to, just like hold you close. Like, that in of itself is so healing for that sort of trauma. How do I find myself secure in my masculinity? Well, there's it's sort of a case of, I know deep down that there's nothing to really worry about in the sense of what people think of you and stuff. People get way too bogged down about what people think of them. And it's like, just, they don't matter. Realistically, the vast majority of those people do not matter, will never matter in your life, and you shouldn't be looking to them as if they do matter. Like, I'm sorry. It's just, obviously as a person they matter, but like, their opinion is not important whatsoever. I think realistically a big part of the whole problem and why this crisis is so prevalent is because societally speaking, people are being conditioned to want to fit in and be willing to bend every aspect of themselves to fit in. And it's like, maybe fitting in isn't the best, people can be kind of crappy. A lot of the popular crowds are awful people because the way they get popular is they compromise their values. So, like, I'm sure I'm not necessarily making a whole lot of sense, and I'm just sort of pontificating about stupid bullshit, but, you know, that's fine. But yeah, like, whoa, what the heck just happened? What are you doing? No. Sorry. I just had Meta try and download something on my computer, which I don't want them doing. I'm not accessing anything of theirs. That was weird. But I guess the main thing is, if you're the type of man that, or teenager, right, that's struggling with identifying who you really are deep down, this is the way to figure that out is not so much the, I guess to use a sort of legalistic term, fruit of the poisonous tree, where you're exploring everything, trying to find it. Well, if you end up finding these paths in very unhealthy and non-ethical ways, you find yourself in a position where, sure, you might like what you found, but is it actually usable? Like, is that valuable to you? Or have you tricked yourself, in a sense? See, the big thing about humanity, in my opinion, is the biggest lie that Satan ever told was that he doesn't exist, right? Of course. How he does that is because humans are very good at convincing themselves of untruths if it suits their desire and their narratives. Humans don't tend to like the uncomfortable, right? So we try and find the comfortable. Humans have a great capacity for cognitive dissonance. This idea of holding values that are opposed to each other, or, in a sense, to believe something that isn't true because it makes you feel more comfortable than believing what is true. And so it's one of those things where a lot of young Christians lose their faith because they can't argue God from a scientific perspective, right? Science does not explain the supernatural world. It explains the natural world, and only the natural world. I'm trying to pick up the bones game. Come on. There we go. It only explains the natural world. Well, God is naturally more than the natural world, so science can't explain him. And so they end up finding themselves unable to reconcile that because they want it to be explainable. And obviously you can make arguments for God from scientific places. Obviously, that's happened for a very, very long time. But it's important to recognize that you can't explain God away with science, just as he is not antithetical to science. He is more than science, and that's the part that people tend to get tripped up on. And then, yeah, I'm kind of losing my spot a little bit. I'm admittedly pretty tired, but hey, you know, just messing around, having some fun, rambling about nonsense, I'm sure. I probably won't even turn this into a video. If I do, I hope it's good. What I'm trying to do in game right now is just trying to level up my combat skills to level 10 and walk around a little bit. Keep it simple. I'm sure I'm doing things in all sorts of non-optimal ways. I don't care. But yeah, so there's that aspect, right, of faith. And someone's masculinity can also end up in a similar route. You have to be very careful about how you nurture masculinity, right? There's of course the classic man up culture, right? Where instead of allowing young boys to be themselves, be silly, and enjoy that aspect of that sort of youthful aspect, that can actually do damage to their masculinity, right? If silliness is very, very important for someone, what ends up happening if that aspect is suppressed often is a case of they haven't let go of being a little silly goofball. It might be particular types of things that people might associate as being very feminine, and or at least not manually, and it ends up creating a sort of unfulfilled hole. That unfulfilled aspect, or at least lack of acceptance, ends up being the sort of root basis for where the fragility of their masculinity comes in. And yeah, I'm kind of losing my place. I'm tired. My voice doesn't feel great, but this is already significantly longer than I thought it would be, admittedly. But just kind of messing about. Let's see. Yeah, I think I'm probably gonna call it here. But I guess the point I was trying to get to of all of that sort of dialogue about masculinity is understand that a lot of the people that you don't understand are in a position where something like that about them is very fragile. Or, in other cases, also consider potentially your fragility in that place. And if you are very fragile in your masculinity, it's worth exploring as to why. That's something that therapy can help with, because quite frankly, a therapist is going to be able to help you dig into that and find solutions a lot better than me. But it's also important to note, it's unfortunately common, especially these days, to find therapists that aren't really interested in actually helping you and more interested in just affirming how you feel to make you more comfortable, right? And there's a time and place for confrontation. And I want to believe that the vast majority of those therapists want to be good therapists and give you confrontation when you need it. But, there's always a chance that that's just not the case. And that sucks. But, it happens. In any case, I hope I've made some sense. I'll honestly probably go ahead and make something out of this and upload it anyway, just so that there's something out there this week. Again, I'm not feeling the best. If you like this style and want to give me topics to talk about, I would greatly appreciate that. I tried to find some topics beforehand, but couldn't really narrow anything down. Ends up, no, it is what it is. But yeah, it was good, and I hope y'all have a good one here soon. So yeah, if you like the content, please give it a like. If you aren't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. You can always change your mind later, and please give comments. It gives me so much more direction as to what anybody actually wants out of my content than just a couple of views here and there. Like, I'm gonna be honest, just a few comments, give some kind of interaction, makes it so much more enjoyable to understand what's going on. So, thank you all for watching and listening through my rambling garbage. I'm sure this episode is complete dog shit, but you know, that is what it is. Thank you all for coming in, and hopefully you have a great day, and God bless. Adios, mi amigos.